What happens when I call it a break, sprint through 4 new men in 7 days, and still expect a sweet homecoming? How can a quiet husband answer that kind of public wound without yelling, threats, or illegal acts? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Isolde Quist, 31, a billing coordinator who makes other people's numbers behave while my own life runs wild. My husband is Damon Kade, 34, a planner for a warehouse network. He likes rules and clean steps. He asked for quiet evenings and clear promises. I said I needed a break to find new feelings. He asked what a break meant. I said space, not goodbye. I told myself space was not betrayal if the door stayed open. The house showed small changes first. 2 mugs dried on opposite counters like strangers. The guest bed looked too neat, as if it waited for a new plan. On the wall planner, a blue circle read, Downtown 1340. I asked what it was. He said an errand. I called it boring. His laptop showed a spreadsheet with initials and dates. Then the screen went blank. A cloud pop-up said, File uploaded successfully, and faded. 3 folders sat in a neat line. Home, auto, bank. He said he was organizing. I said he loved drama in slow motion. I told my brother, Rowan, that I wanted new feelings to save old love. He said a woman should own the room. Damon's mother, Adela, sent a soft message about gentle voices for Livia, our daughter. I said I was just being honest. Damon moved to the guest room and let the door latch click. I told myself the click meant freedom, not distance. During the week that followed, I chased a fast kind of proof. A DJ said I looked awake under lights. A startup rep said coffee had energy. A trainer said effort suits me. A neighbor said plants bloom under attention. I called all of this research. I told myself I would come home with a better heart. I did not ask if hearts like this kind of study. I boiled water for tea and let the kettle hiss 1 second longer so he would walk into the kitchen. He walked in with that even step he uses for everything. He asked if I slept. I said I had ideas. He asked if the ideas were about us. I said they were about making us stronger. He asked what stronger looked like. I said stronger needed a break first. He set 2 clean mugs on the counter. I moved one to the far side so they sat apart. I said, mugs dry better with space. He looked at the gap and said nothing. I decided his silence was control, not care. I told him a break could be 7 days. I said a break was not goodbye. I said a break let me find new feelings and bring them home like fresh air. He asked if a break meant seeing other people. I said it meant I did not want to lie about curiosity. I called that honesty. He called it risk. The fridge light fell on the tile like stage light. I liked it. I spoke about trust and growth and how small shocks keep a heart awake. He asked if shocks were kind. I said kindness comes after growth. He said children sleep better when parents are gentle. I said Livia sleeps at 9, no matter what we feel. He rubbed his thumb along the mug handle as if it were a pencil line he could fix. On the wall planner, a blue circle sat over Tuesday, Downtown 1340. I tapped it and asked what it was. He said a quick errand. I said errands do not deserve ink. He said paper helps him remember. I said phones remember better. He said some things should live on paper. The phrase some things made me feel small, so I stood taller. Rowan pinged my phone and told me a woman like me should own the room. He sent a clip of a speaker saying marriage is a living lab. I said yes out loud to no one. Damon asked who I was talking to. I said my brother understands growth. He asked if growth meant him losing his seat. I said no one loses anything if everyone is brave. He said bravery without care hurts people. I said words like, care keep women inside boxes. I passed the study and saw his laptop glow. A spreadsheet was open with initials in one column and dates in another. When I stepped closer, he pressed a key and the screen went blank. A small cloud pop-up slid in the corner. File uploaded successfully. 3 folders sat in a calm row on the desktop: home, auto, bank. I laughed and said he was nesting for winter. He said he was organizing. I said organizing is drama in slow motion. He did not answer. He opened a simple notepad file, typed something, and closed it without saving. A thin binder labeled Utilities sat on the shelf beside the printer. It felt heavier than bills. Inside the cover, a sticky note said, "Bring forms," in his neat letters. I asked what forms. He said service checks and account confirmations. I called it busy work. He said busy hands keep home steady. I rolled my eyes at the neatness of the word steady. The guest bed looked too neat. I pushed the quilt with my palm and watched it hold the shape of my hand. He stood in the hall and asked if I wanted the bed for myself during this break. I said I wanted freedom, not distance. He said he would sleep there for a while, so Livia got quiet nights. I said I would not bring noise home. He said breaks make noise anyway. I said he was overreacting. He said he was planning. I stepped onto the balcony and took a selfie with the skyline. I tried a caption, "New feelings make old love real." I saved it for later. I messaged Rowan that I would use the lab line soon. He sent a row of fire icons and said speed works. I like speed because it looks like certainty. Back inside, Damon lifted Livia's backpack and checked the pocket for the reading log. He asked if I had signed last night. I said I would sign after I tested a caption. He said logs beat captions. I said both matter. He said numbers beat noise. I smiled like that was a joke. He placed a small stack of mail in the blue tray by the door and flipped the pile so the newest sat under the oldest. He does this to slow time. I moved a card back to the top and said, "New things deserve the light." He said old things deserve closure. I said closure is for stories, not real life. He said our daughter is real life. He opened the study drawer and slid something inside. The tiny lock clicked when he turned the key. He put the key on his ring. A new, unfamiliar key sat there too, small and bright. I asked what that one opened. He said storage. I asked storage for what? He said not urgent. The printer gave a soft breath like it wanted to begin and then stopped. The smell of toner drifted into the hall. I said the building vents are strange. My phone buzzed. A DJ I knew from a rooftop sent a smile and wrote that Thursday crowds love honest women. A startup rep I met at the co-working cafe wrote that afternoon, "Light suits my eyes." A trainer from the gym replied to an old story and said, "Effort looks good on me." A neighbor who waters his plants sent a photo of my balcony herbs and asked if I wanted help. I told myself all of this was not cheating, it was research. I said research is noble. I said scientists test things. Adela texted the family thread with a photo of Livia's bedtime chart and a note that quiet voices grow strong roots. I typed that bold mothers raise brave daughters. She replied with a single period. Damon asked if Adela could take Livia Friday evening. I said we were fine. He said the offer helps. I said help is a soft word for meddling. He said family is allowed to care. I asked Damon to repeat after me that a break is not betrayal. He said definitions do not erase outcomes. I said outcomes are made by people who lack imagination. He said consequences are made by choices. I said everyone loves me when I am honest. He said crowds love a show. I said the crowd can see goodness. He said the crowd cannot tuck a child in. He brought out 2 mugs and set them down far apart again, handles pointing away from each other like they avoided eye contact. I took a picture of the counter because the symmetry pleased me. He asked if the picture had to include our kitchen. I said, "Kitchens sell real life." He said, "Our life should be real without selling." I said selling gives shape to meaning. He shook his head and smiled without joy. When he went to the hall closet, I looked at his laptop again. The The desktop tree flashed open for half a second. Archive A, Archive B. The window minimized when he returned. He asked if I needed the desk. I said I needed him to stop hiding like a clerk. He said he was organizing his own side of the street. I said I would organize the story. He said he hoped I would organize care. He tied his shoelaces and asked if the break had rules. I said the rule was honesty. He asked if honesty included who and when. I said my week was my week. He nodded like that was a number he could set aside. He asked if I would tell Livia anything. I said Livia would hear words about Mommy finding new feelings to help our love. He said Livia needs parents who choose stability, not experiments. I said experiments prove what is strong. He said strong homes feel safe. I said safety is a prison with soft blankets. He picked up his pillow and book. He said he would be in the guest room for a while. I said I did not ask for that. He said I asked for space. I said space is a trust fall. He said trust starts with care, not tests. I said tests are my language. He said Livia speaks simple. I said children learn what we teach them. He said then we must teach them well. He stood in the doorway of the guest room. The hall light cut a clean bar across his shoulder. He told me he would keep things steady for Livia, and that was the whole sentence. He did not ask me for permission. He did not say please. He did not say more. He closed the door. The latch clicked once and settled like a period at the end of the quiet. His muted phone on the dresser lit for one heartbeat, with a thread titled Follow-up, and then went dark. The printer in the study made a low start-up sound and fed a single blank page into the tray, then stopped. My own phone buzzed with a tiny pulse. A calendar reminder I never made flashed on the lock screen. Meeting personal, downtown 14:05, and slid away before I could touch it. I stared at the empty screen and listened to the house hold its breath. I got to the open plan office early and let my heels set a neat beat down the row. Taryn from Payables asked if I had fun plans for my break. I said growth needs space. She asked if Damon liked space. I said Damon liked order, and I liked results. She rolled back and made the face people make when they want to watch without helping. I opened my inbox and cleaned 3 overdue statements in 10 minutes. Speed calmed me because speed looks like virtue. Still, my head circled home like a drone. 2 mugs drying on opposite counters, the guest bed too neat, the blue circle on the planner that said downtown 1340. I told myself paper people write things because they fear forgetting. I do not forget, I curate. A group chat pinged. Rowan sent the Living Lab clip again and added a flame line about bravery. I said bravery needs witnesses. He wrote that the city loves a headline. I said I was the headline. He sent 3 crowns. Crowns sit well in my head. Mr. Carver from Logistics passed my desk and asked if I had a minute for a quick word with HR after lunch. His tone was soft and still heavy. I said of course. Taryn raised both eyebrows. I shrugged as if it were a weather report. I reconciled a vendor return and then opened a tab for lipstick shades that read, well on camera. The colors felt like choices I could win. A banner slid across our intranet about avoiding visible company marks in personal posts. I smiled at the timing and told myself rules were for people who could not hold a room with a look. Near 11, 2 co-workers whispered by the copier about a DJ who knew my name. I kept my posture straight because posture answers gossip better than words. I drafted a text to Jules, the startup guy with the nice watch, and wrote that coffee at 4 could help me shape my arc. He replied that the co-working cafe had a window seat and that I looked awake in afternoon light. I let the message sit on my screen long enough to feel it in my shoulders. Damon sent a short note asking if I could sign Livia's reading log tonight. I wrote that I would after I tested a caption. He wrote that logs beat captions. I wrote that both matter. He sent a thumbs up and nothing else. The space after the sticker made me itch. At lunch, Ms. Dell waved me into the little HR room. She thanked me for fast work. and then turned a printout toward me. A freeze frame from last year's charity night, where our logo glowed behind my face. She asked me to keep company marks out of my personal reels this week. She said strangers connect dots quickly. I said my life was tasteful and separate. She said perception becomes part of the job even when we do not intend it. I said I would be mindful. The paper felt warm. The toner smell made me think of our study at home. I thanked her as if I had done her a favor. Back at my desk, I paid 2 reimbursements with clean notes to remind the world that I deliver. Then I opened my gallery and built a draft carousel. Coffee, skyline, a hand, a smile that almost looked kind. I typed a line about how new feelings keep old love real. I deleted it because it tasted like a dare instead of a hug. A small calendar alert I had never made slid onto my phone. Meeting, personal, downtown 9:25. It sat for one breath and then vanished like a leaf pulled down a drain. I stared at the blank place it left. I told myself I had tapped something wrong last night. I told myself phones misbehave. I told myself this was not a story, it was a glitch. At 3:40, I walked to the co-working cafe and chose the window seat because halos sell redemption. Jules arrived with that smooth pace. Men learn when rooms tell them yes. He asked if the break felt like freedom. I said it felt like craft. He said I looked awake in a good way. I said I wanted a soft opener and a clean cut after that. He said a crowd loves a dare. I said I was not daring, I was researching. He said research needs control groups. I said I control the room. My phone buzzed with a call from Damon's line, showing as private like always. I let it ring and told Jules that trust meant not jumping for every sound. He said trust was rare. His praise warmed my collarbones. I asked if I should aim my story at courage or care. He said, courage sells first, care sells later. I said I could do both in 1 week. On the walk back, the air felt thinner, like someone had opened a vent too far. I answered 2 vendor emails just to hear my keyboard make tidy proof of my value. When the clock let me go, I carried that tidy proof like a pass. The hallway of our building smelled like lemon and warm plastic. I stepped into the study and the laptop woke to a clean desktop with 3 folders in a straight line. Home, auto, bank. For a breath, a tidy tree opened. Archive A, Archive B. A small cloud pop in the corner said file uploaded successfully and faded. As I leaned in, the screen shifted to a blank field. Damon turned the desk drawer key. The click was not loud, but it closed the space between my ribs. He asked if I needed the charger. I said I needed air that did not smell like toner. He said the window worked. I said windows did not fix attitudes. He said dinner was simple if I wanted to eat first. I said captions feed better than pasta. On the shelf, the thin binder labeled utilities looked thicker than last month. Inside the cover, a sticky note read, "Bring forms" in his neat letters. Under the taxes tab, a small USB sat taped flat, plain as a rule. I called it boring out loud, so I would not call it proof. Rowan sent a message to our sibling thread that I should own the story now or risk being owned. He wrote that people in our circle had started a guessing game with numbers. I typed that numbers were for accounts, not feelings. He wrote that attention has its own math. He is not wrong. I still hate it. Damon placed mail in the blue tray by the door and flipped the stack, so the newest sat under the oldest. He does that when he wants time to slow down. I moved one letter back to the top. He moved it back again without speaking. The action felt like 2 magnets testing which one would hold. Adela texted that she could keep Livia Saturday if we needed rest. I typed that we were fine, then erased it and typed thank you with a heart. She replied with a single dot, a tiny nod. I tried for a family photo by the window, 3 plates, 2 shadows, 1 caption, and asked Damon to sit close. He said he had to answer an email first. He sat at the desk. The cloud popped once. File uploaded successfully. The tree flicked open, Archive A, Archive B, and closed again like a hand. The drawer clicked. The printer light glowed without printing. I said the smell came from somewhere else. He said maybe. I opened my drafts and scrolled past the carousel until the screen caught my reflection. I lifted my chin to line it with my own idea of grace. A contact I had saved with a single emoji pinged a short note. He wrote that Thursday nights reward honesty. I typed that honesty needs a stage. He sent a spark. From the hallway, I heard Damon talking in a low voice with his headphones on. His tone sounded like he was measuring lumber. Steady, careful, no drama. I caught only one word from the doorway. Follow up. He listened longer than he spoke. He ended the call and put the phone face down. I said we could post a Unity shot to calm noise. He said we did not owe strangers a show. I said silence makes rumor grow. He said silence lets peace grow. I said peace is what people call me when they want me small. He said small is fine if it means safe. I said safety is a soft prison. He said prisons have locks, families have doors. He moved toward the guest room with that even step again. I watched the way he did not hurry and did not slow. He paused at the wall planner and tapped the blue circle, downtown 1340, with one finger. I asked if he wanted me to set a reminder. He said he already had one. I said alarms were for people who forget. He said remembering is kindness. I stood in the kitchen and placed 2 clean mugs far apart, handles facing away like strangers who refused to meet. I took a picture of the distance and told myself the frame made art from reality. My phone buzzed once more. A calendar alert I never made flashed on my lock screen. Meeting, personal, downtown, 9:25. It disappeared before I could touch it, leaving the glass as blank as my face. The rooftop bar looked like a stage. The city ran behind the glass rail in long lines of light. I arrived early and chose a table near the edge because cameras love edges. Cass, the DJ, sent a smile from the booth and raised his hand like a cue. He asked by gesture if I was ready for a brave night. I nodded and thought brave was another word for awake. Jules slid in from the stairs with a clean shirt and a watch that caught the lamp. He said the room felt electric. I said the room was lucky to have me. He laughed and ordered a round, and I told myself a free drink was a sign and not a hook. Theo, the trainer, came with 2 friends from the gym. He said focus looked good on me. I said focus liked attention. Marco, the neighbor who cared for balcony plants, walked past with a friend and pretended surprise. He said I looked different outside our building. I said light changes people. Damon arrived in his plain jacket and placed his phone face down. He asked if we could eat before talk. I said talk is the meal. He said calm helps food digest. I said edge helps the night live. Levin waved from a side table with his camera already open. He said the first cut should be clean. I said I was ready. Cass dropped the beat low and then cut the music. He lifted his glass and called the room brave with a tilt of his chin. The chant started because crowds love simple moves. People tapped their phones and lifted them. I felt tall because I had planned to feel tall. I stood before anyone asked and said love is a living lab. I said new feelings keep old love real. I said a 1-week break is a smart test. Heads turned, and the phones turned with them. I said my week held 4 lessons. I did not name men, I named types, so it sounded like science. I said one lesson was about rhythm, one about ideas, one about drive, one about quiet hands. Laughter came in a wave, then hush, then more laughter. Cass clapped the beat back in with 2 fingers. Levin made a small circle with his wrist to keep me going. Jules leaned into the light and said this city rewards clarity. I said clarity is my middle name. Theo flexed like a joke. Marco rested his forearms on the rail and watched the room react instead of reacting himself. Damon did not move. He placed his napkin down in a straight line and said we would talk later. His tone carried no fire. I called that cold in my head because cold is easier to fight than steady. I added that everyone thinks they want safety, but safety is a soft prison. I said experiments prove love. Someone near the rail yelled that I sounded brave. Another said I sounded cruel. I smiled at the first voice and let the second one slide off. Levin texted me to post now before heat drops. I opened my camera and caught my own face under the ring light. I wrote a caption about research, honesty, and strong hearts. I did not post. Timing is a knife and a bandage. I wanted both. Mira, a woman from the building who knew Marco's friend, gave me a long look and then glanced at Damon. She said with her eyebrows that this would hurt. I looked away because I do not take directions without a ticket. I stepped to the smoking patio for air and a side pose. Two girls with phones pretended to film the skyline, but aimed at me. I turned my shoulder just enough, then smiled like the night, and I had a secret. Inside the glass, Cass dimmed the booth lights for drama. Theo came out and asked if the break felt like wings. I said wings do not need cages. He said strength needs rest. I said rest bores me. Back at the table, Jules asked if I wanted him to host a soft Q&A with the crowd, like a panel. I said panels are for people who fear edges. He laughed and called me kinetic. Marco held the door as I passed and asked if the building herbs needed water tomorrow. I said attention makes things grow. He said too much attention burns leaves. I said sun is not a crime. Damon stood near the stairwell with headphones on. He spoke in a low voice to someone I did not see. He said boundaries in the same tone he uses for measurements. He said yes. Then I heard him say Archive A, then uploaded. He listened longer than he spoke and ended the call when he saw me. He asked if I wanted to go home and talk. I said the night still had work for me. He said our part was done. He thanked Cass for the set and nodded at Levin without anger. The nod hurt more than anger would have. Cass cut the music again and asked for a final toast. He said the room loved truth. I raised my glass and said, a break is not betrayal when the door stays open. Phones lifted higher. A camera flash popped so hard the shadows moved. For a breath, the bar looked like a courtroom that had thrown away its judge. People started to talk over each other. A stranger said I had main character energy. Another said Damon looked like a good man. Someone asked if he would fight for me. I answered with a half bow and said we do not need fights. We need fresh air. Damon placed cash on the table for our untouched plates and said we would speak at home. He walked to the elevator without looking back. That steady back felt like a wall. I followed slower because I wanted one last clip. Levin met me by the hallway to ask if I could soften the line for the morning edit. He said, give people one apology to share. I said, apologies belong to the weak. He said, apologies belong to the wise. I said, wisdom is often bland. He said, bland is safe for children. We reached the gym corridor downstairs because Theo wanted to grab his bag before we left. Mirrors on both sides made copies of us. He joked that I was efficient because I fit 4 lessons into 1 week. I said I worked with numbers. He said numbers count consequences too. I laughed and called it banter so my face would not show the sting. In the reflection, Damon's phone lit with a call labelled private. He declined it and kept walking. We crossed into the parking garage. The air changed to cold and coin. Our car faced the street in a perfect line. It looked deliberate. He opened the passenger door. I did not get in. He closed it without a sound. He asked if I wanted a ride or space. I said I wanted him to defend me. He said defense was not the work. Respect was the work. He had the same calm voice he used with Livia when she tried to balance too many blocks. A push alert hit my phone from a gossip account with a clip titled, Break Week 4 Lessons. The angle showed me proud and Damon quiet. Hearts climbed the screen like a ladder. I liked the post and then hated my thumb for doing it. A second preview flashed on my lock screen titled Statement and disappeared before I could tap. The word left a thin line across my chest. Levine texted, that my window for grace was small. He wrote that morning, "Tide's turn." I typed that tides obey the moon, and I am the moon. He sent a flat face. Jules messaged a spark and wrote that courage sells. Theo sent a hand emoji and wrote that care lasts. Marco sent a picture of basil leaves with brown tips and wrote that sun is medicine until it burns. I told myself they were all reacting to my light, not warning me. Damon rested both hands on the roof of the car and took one patient breath. He said we would talk at home. He said we would do it without an audience. He said Livia needed steady, not story. I said stories make families proud. He said stories make families tired. He moved to the driver's side and waited. I stood by the elevator doors and watched them open and close for other people with smaller nights. I took one last photo of the exit stripe and framed it like a runway. The picture looked neat and empty. I thought emptiness could be edited into grace. I kept believing that because belief is the drug I choose. We met Adela and Omar at a family restaurant with long tables and shiny menus that stuck to elbows. Adela rose and kissed my cheek with careful pressure. She asked if we slept. I said we celebrated honesty. She said routines help children. Damon thanked her for holding a spot for us. His tone stayed even. Even tones make rooms feel like tests. I set my phone by the sugar packets like a flower on a plate. The server poured coffee and called us a brave family. I liked the word brave even when it cost someone else. I began before anyone could frame me. I said last night proved we were not the kind of couple that hides. I said a break was research, and research keeps love alive. Adela folded her napkin into a neat bar and asked if kindness could lead for a while. I said soft truth often means delay. Omar asked Damon about a delivery schedule, and Damon answered with numbers and calm. I told myself they avoided my light because it was too bright. Livia tugged my sleeve and asked if Daddy's face was sad because I made people laugh. I said Daddy was quiet. She asked if Mommy wanted new daddies, since 4 feels like more love. The fork in my hand tapped the plate in a small, bright noise. I smiled and said grown-ups teach with humor. I said teaching can sound sharp and still help hearts grow. Adela slid Livia's plate closer and said boundaries protect children. I said boundaries are fear in a dress. Damon asked the server for extra napkins. His voice was gentle. Gentle made me feel like I was shouting, even when I was not. Plates arrived. Syrup made a gloss on pancakes like a camera trick. I gave a short speech about being real in public so children do not learn shame. Livia asked if Daddy would leave if people clapped too loud again. Damon said, families choose steady steps. I said applause means love. Adela placed her hand over Livia's and said love can be quiet too. I told myself quiet love is lazy. I told myself I was the only one doing the work. I tried to steer the table back to charm. I said the city needs examples of couples who do not hide. Adela asked if examples must include lists. I said lists help people learn. Omar sipped and did not take sides. Damon thanked the server by name, the way he always remembers names. He remembers names. I remember lights. After brunch, we walked to the park. The swings squeaked like small doors that needed oil. 2 parents near the slide paused their talk when we passed. I lifted my chin and told Damon we were stronger than ever. He said records matter more than noise. I asked what records meant. He did not answer. Livia asked if I would make another brave joke tonight. I said, maybe later. She asked if later means never. The echo made my throat feel tight. Adela pointed at ducks on the pond and asked Livia to count them. Livia counted in a clear voice. Numbers felt like the only straight lines left. We sat on a bench under a thin tree. My phone kept lighting with hearts under Rowan's new cut of my clip. A stranger wrote that I was fearless. Another wrote that I was cruel. I liked the first and scrolled past the second, as if the second were a bug. Omar stood a little away and spoke with Damon in low tones. They nodded like men counting steps on a plan. Their nods looked like a code I did not know. I hate not knowing codes. On the path home, we stopped at the supermarket. The fluorescent light was too white and made faces look honest by mistake. A neighbor from our building stood by the apples and watched us with a soft frown. She asked if we were okay. I said we were great. She said gentle voices fix hard weeks. I said I was the gentle one. Damon added pasta to the basket and asked if we needed anything else. I said we needed Grace. He nodded like Grace was sitting on an end cap. At checkout, my phone pulsed once with a calendar reminder I never made, downtown 16:05. It flashed and vanished before I could touch it. The empty space it left felt like a missing tile. The cashier asked if we wanted bags. I said yes in a voice that sounded like I had been underwater. Damon thanked the cashier by name. Adela squeezed my shoulder like a warning, and then smiled, so the warning looked like care. We reached the apartment in late afternoon. The hallway smelled like lemon and warm plastic. 2 mugs waited on opposite counters again, handles facing away from each other like strangers on a bus. I moved them together for a second for a fake candid, and then apart again because the photo would look honest that way. Livia set her sticker sheet on the table and asked if grown-ups say sorry when jokes hurt. I said we fix more than we say sorry. Damon said sorry is a start. I said captions help more. Adela's eyes met mine and did not move. Eyes can be walls. I drifted toward the study. The printer light glowed without printing. On the shelf sat the thin binder labeled Utilities, thicker than last month. I opened it. Inside the cover, a sticky note read, "Bring forms" in neat blue letters. Under the taxes folder, a small USB was taped flat, steady, as if it had slept there for years. The smell of toner rose even though the tray was empty. I told myself a neighbor had printed something and the air had wandered through the vents. Damon stepped into the doorway with headphones around his neck. He asked if I needed the desk. I said I needed him to stop acting like a clerk in my life. He said he was organizing his own side. I said organization is punishment dressed as order. He said order is kindness over time. Livia called from the sofa and asked if crowns fix fights. I said crowns make people remember who they are. Damon said crowns are for plays. I said life is a play if you are brave. He said families are not shows. I reached for the desk drawer. It locked with a small, final click as my hand touched the handle. He turned the key once and placed it on his ring. A new, unfamiliar key shone there, plain and tidy. I asked what it opened. He said storage. I asked storage for what? He said not urgent. The printer hummed and slid a single blank page like a sigh. The page looked like a sign without words. I tried to frame a Unity shot by the window. Livia leaned into me with her sticker crown, and the paper points bent. Adela stood behind the couch and straightened a blanket with quiet hands. I said a gentle post would calm the chatter. Damon said we did not owe strangers a show. I said silence feeds rumor. He said silence feeds peace. I said peace is what people say when they want me small. He said peace helps children sleep. Rowan messaged me that I should own the story now or lose it. He wrote that people were counting and naming the 4 like a game score. I typed that names are for payroll, not feelings. He wrote that attention has a ledger too. I placed the phone face down because his numbers felt like cuffs. Adela gathered her bag and said she could take Livia for the evening so we could rest. I said we were fine and then said thank you instead. Livia asked if Daddy would be here when she came back. Damon said yes, at the time set. The words time set sounded like a rule I had not agreed to. I asked what time that was. He said the usual. I said usual is a moving thing. He said not anymore. The apartment shifted when the door closed behind them. The shredder gave one faint hum and then stopped. The sound touched my spine like a finger. I walked back into the study and stared at the clean desktop. 3 folders sat calm in a row. Home, auto, bank, For a breath, the tree opened. Archive A, Archive B, and then closed. A small cloud icon blinked file uploaded successfully and faded. I told myself he was scanning manuals. I told myself he liked lists the way I liked light. I told myself I was still the author here. I stood in the kitchen and held a mug that was not mine. It felt heavier than a mug. I set it down where I found it, far from the other one. My phone lit with a comment from a stranger, asking if I understood the word consent. I typed a long answer in my head and then nothing on the screen. The answer in my head made me look like a hero. The screen stayed blank. I walked to the balcony and watched the street. Cars slid by like thoughts I could not keep. A child below laughed at a small dog. I told myself that laugh was proof that the world still liked brave stories. Then I told myself, maybe it was only proof that dogs are funny. My stories get jealous of plain things. Damon stepped out and asked if I wanted soup. I said soup is for endings. He said soup is for care. I said care is slow. He said slow is safe. I said safe is boring. He nodded without anger. That steady nod felt worse than anger. He gathered the mail, flipped the stack so the newest fell under the oldest, and placed it in the blue tray by the door. He does that when he wants time to follow rules. I took Livia to dance at the community centre and planned a soft photo for later. The hall smelled like dust and rubber. Parents leaned on the wall and scrolled. I asked Damon to stand with us for one quick picture. He said we should focus on Livia's steps. I said a family photo shows support. He moved to the notice board and slipped on headphones like he was building a quiet room around his head. His lock screen flashed for a second before he turned it over. A slim alarm slid across. Paper drop 0850. He dismissed it with one thumb and watched our daughter stretch, steady as stone. After class, Livia wanted stickers. We stopped at the pharmacy. A neighbor from our building waited 2 spots ahead and gave me that pity smile people package as kindness. She asked if we were okay. I said we were great. She said gentle voices fix hard weeks. I said I was the gentle one. Damon thanked the cashier by name and handed Livia the sticker sheet. His even tone made me feel like I was shouting, even when I was not. Back home, I arranged cushions and tried for a warm couch shot. I asked Damon to sit close so I could post a quiet carousel. He said he had to answer an email first. The study woke. A small cloud flashed in the corner, file uploaded successfully, and faded. On the desktop, 3 folders sat in a neat row. Home, Auto, Bank. For a breath, a clean tree opened. Archive A, Archive B, and then closed like a hand. The desk drawer clicked as he turned the key. The sound was small and still felt like a door. I followed him to the kitchen and said he was punishing me with order. He said order helps us breathe. I said order steals oxygen. He said anger steals it faster. I said the week was research. He said the week was humiliation. I said he was rewriting history. He said he was writing down steps. We stood like 2 statues wired for different storms. Adela texted that she could take Livia for the afternoon. I typed that we were fine and then erased the words and typed yes. Damon tied Livia's shoes and thanked his mother with a short reply. Livia asked if crowns fix fights. I said crowns make people remember who they are. Damon said crowns are for plays. I told myself he loved props more than people. When the door closed, the apartment changed sound. The shredder hummed once and stopped. I walked into the study and found the thin binder labeled Utilities on the shelf, thicker than last month. Inside the cover, a sticky note read, "Bring forms" in his tidy letters. Under the taxes folder, a single USB sat taped flat. Sure. The printer fed out one blank page like a sigh. I said out loud, this was theatre. No one answered. The page stayed blank and true. I asked Damon for a stairwell photo before Livia came back. He said no to pictures. I said I needed a public reset. He said we did not owe strangers a show. I said strangers will talk if we stay silent. He said strangers can talk to themselves. I said silence is cruel. He said silence is kind when tempers are high. I said he could not freeze me out and expect love to live. He met my eyes and spoke like he was measuring lumber. He said he would handle this properly. The word properly landed like a ruler on a desk. I asked what properly meant. He said steps, not scenes. He said no more surprises, no more sudden speeches, and no more turning family into content. I said I wanted details. He said I would see them when it was time. I said time is a trick. He said time is how we stop breaking things. He picked up his keys. A new, unfamiliar key shone on the ring. I asked what it opened. He said storage. I asked storage for what? He said not urgent. He put on his jacket and moved toward the door. I followed into the stairwell where the air was cooler and honest. I said he could not speak to me like a meeting agenda. He said we had a child, and we would do the next part with care. I reached for his sleeve. He stepped back without heat and repeated the word properly. He walked down the stairs with measured steps that made no echo. I went to the parking garage to check angles for a peace photo later, even if it was just me and a caption about Grace. His car faced the street in a clean line. A thin labeled bin already sat in the trunk. He adjusted it and closed the lid gently, like people do when they respect objects more than noise. Headphones rested on his neck for a low hallway call. I heard only the words, follow up, and a calm understood. I wore a bright coat because bright looks like hope in lobbies. The office tower smelled like watered plants. I stood near the directory and practiced a soft face for a lunch photo. Omar waited by the windows, hands in pockets, not entering. Damon stepped from the elevator in his plain jacket. He said now was a good time to be clear. I said Clarity liked coffee. He said Clarity should not need coffee. A woman in a neat suit approached with a slim folder. She asked if I was Isolde Quist. I said yes. She asked me to confirm my address. I did. She said she had documents for me. She handed a packet and explained, in simple words, what it was. A divorce petition with temporary financial and possession orders, plus an initial custody schedule for Livia with pickup times and rules for contact through one channel only. Her tone measured, not sharp. I said the week was research, not betrayal. Damon said the week was harm. I said I could delete clips. He said patterns decide futures. I said he was scaring Livia with distance. He said boundaries protect children. He thanked the woman. He thanked Omar. He said all contact would follow the packet. The elevator bell chimed. Doors opened. He stepped in, calm. The doors slid shut, while the packet grew heavy in my hands, and the lobby swallowed the sound. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.